Hello, I'm Shafak Nervo from Optilon Crea and Ando Living. As you remember, in July, with the amendments to the nationality law, we made a video content to clarify the situation with our trusted partners, especially for our existing investors. And we promised you to give you some news when we have more clarity. And today, mid-November, I think we have some developments in the situation that we are very happy to host Anna Rita and Manuel again. Thanks for coming, as usual. To go over the things, to give you the actual situation, I will try to ask the general questions that you have for us to be informed well and to have our point of situation. So thanks for coming in your very busy schedules, as far as I know. So I will jump into the subject. We don't need to go over the changes because we have our first content for that if anybody wants to watch it again. Could you give us clear update on the nationality law amendment and what was the plot twist of the recent days?
Okay, so since the last video, what happened was that the actual changes to the nationality law were discussed and were approved in the parliament. So amongst other things, the timeline for application for passport has been voted to be increased from 5 years to 7 if for Portuguese-speaking countries and European Union citizens, and 10 years for all the other applicants. Also, the timelines for when this period starts counting, it went back to the original state, which was with the issue of the first card. Some options in the law were removed. For example, the Sephardic Jew route for acquisition of nationality has been removed. Also, a cultural test and Portuguese national symbols was increased and added to the requirements that need to be met in order to verify, also on top of the language requirement, which remains the same. All of this was voted by the parliament.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was voted on the worst case possible scenario, right?
Yes, in terms of timings, it was unexpected. Usually this is more or less like a negotiation.
This is what we have spoken last time. That's why I
they try to give you the worst case scenario, so then the parliament negotiates and leaves it at a more
agreeable
time. But this time it was in fact almost approved to the full content of the original plan drafted by the government. This was approved and it was sent to the President of the Republic because it's the normal the normal process of the legislative procedure. So after this, now the President had 20 days to say something about the law. In the meantime, what happened was that the Socialist Party, which was one of the parties that voted against this at the parliament.
Totally against. They were, yes. Everybody was against, totally.
Yes. Has sent the law to be reviewed by the Constitutional Court. Okay, this is not something which is very typical. Usually it's the President of the Republic that sends this to the Constitutional Court whenever he or she has concerns about the unconstitutionality. This time it was one of the parties that voted against this that sent it. Now we're at that stage where very recently this was sent to the Constitutional Court. They now have a period of 25 days to declare whether or not they believe there are some unconstitutionality. And in the meantime, what happened was that the President of the Republic decided to say that, well, obviously he's not going to...
He will wait for
the result before he has to make any comments. So we don't have any official position or comments from the president yet, because he almost didn't have any time. He had it on his desk for a couple of days when the PS party sent it to the court. So he decided to do what was expected, was say, I'm not commenting this until I hear back from the Constitutional Court. And this is where we stand now. So just for clarity, nothing is in force now. There are still things that can be changed that will depend largely on the review by the Constitutional Court.
Manuel, I want to ask this, that is it usual that Parliament asks for constitutional review? How often it happens? Because while we were speaking, we were always saying that the President can do this and that, and I'm here for 8 years. This is the, I think, first time I see this happening. and what it signifies.
Well, correct. One, this is a legal procedure that's written in the Constitution, so it's nothing like extraordinary in that sense, right? It's one of the mechanisms available.
Yes.
Politically speaking, right? Because at the end of the day, producing laws is a sensitive matter. Politically speaking, it's not the norm, right? So the
It's
parliament,
not the usual way.
it's not the usual. A party that gets defeated in the discussion of the law, most of the times they accept it, even if they think it's unconstitutional, and let the president take the move. When are in question matters that a party considers relevant, and it's not everybody's, right? It's not all parties that have this prerogative at the parliament, right? We have to represent a minimum of 20%
Okay.
of the parliament, and PS does. There has to be a significant number of parliament members to raise this request to the Constitutional Court. PS has it, is second largest party in the country, has been government for the past 8 out of 10 years, so most of your time here has been PS as government. So this to tell you that it's a relevant part of the political community in Portugal that raised this request. That said, yes, it's a legal procedure and standard in that sense, but politically speaking, it's not often to be used.
Okay, so I see it as a positive aspect.
It's a positive aspect in a sense that a very sizable part of the Portuguese political community is severely against this law to its fundamentals. Right? It's not just like I don't agree with the political option, it's more than that. I think this law offends our legal building, right? So this is shaking the foundations of our political and legal system. So this should be checked by the Constitutional Court, and we will be anticipating ourselves to the President in this matter because we consider it extremely relevant, extremely important. It's an extreme case, so we take that initiative.
I think this is important information for the existing investors because most of the time we and you, me, all the market players have heard that what if the law change, what will happen and everything. So they were questioning on this. So I think it's still a positive light, I would say, where a lot of investors trust us in this country with the certain rules.
Indeed. If you allow me to add, yes, this was approved in an ordinary speed, this piece of legislation, but at the end of the day, it's a process that was supplied with several documentation, in a sense. We didn't see at the chambers a large discussion, it was relatively short discussion, 2 very short sessions. But at the technical point, there were a lot of legal opinions being written by very relevant law professors in Portugal, some of them the most regarded in the country, already highlighting constitutional issues. All the parties, not only the government, all the parties presented their own version of what they think should be the change to the citizenship law, including PS. And PS was more moderate, if you allow me to say. There was a transition period in their version, so people that already invested or they are in the residency process, they were grandfathered.
Not in the nationality, but residency.
That's actually the key point.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, right? And like I mentioned in the past time we were here, I still go by the principle that we need to protect the trust that people put in the country when they read a piece of legislation. Right, so even though if on formality of things, the law may look relatively okay, if we go to the deep root of it, the reason why we have that law, I think we are offending very fundamental constitutional principles in Portugal, namely the trust. And this is written not only by me, I'm nobody in that sense, but by very relevant law professors, professors that wrote the Constitution, right? It's written there. So at the end of the day, there's on a technical level, there is discussion. There are written opinions. There are alternative law drafts to this amendment. Now let the president let's wait for the court to rule.
What they will say. So Anarita, maybe you can explain us what are the remaining steps, what are the possibilities and possible durations that we know that what is the changed version of the law?
It's a very difficult question that in terms of time frame, because obviously this is all dependent on several factors and what happens. Of course, what we now know is that we're still maybe 22 days left for the Constitutional Court to...
I would say still 25, because I checked. The process is not yet attributed to a judge or to a group of judges.
So maybe we still have the 25 days.
1 month.
It's the maximum. We don't know how long it will take them. Of course, this has been, in the discussions for a long time. So probably they already have an opinion formed, like the majority of the involved parties. But they will have the maximum of 25 days to decide. And then depending on what they say, if they find that something is unconstitutional, it needs to go back to the parliament to be amended.
So they will be pointing out the unconstitutional parts they see and send it back to the parliament to say, discuss about these. And
yes, basically the president cannot approve, if there are decided unconstitutionalities in the law. So, either it goes through the president to be sent back to the parliament, or it goes to the parliament. It ends up in the same place, which is the parliament. The laws will need to always be changed in the parliament. This bit doesn't change. It's not the president or the Constitutional Court that have the power to decide or to remove bits or parts of the law. What they have the power is to say this part is against the constitutional for this and this and this reason.
Okay.
If that is the case, it goes back to the parliament, and then they will have to either change that according to what the Constitutional Court declares, or remove or amend. If this is not the case and the Constitutional Court says that, we do not see any unconstitutionalities here, then it goes back to the president that will need to make now a political decision on the law. Okay, so
because he cannot send it back. Because he already has their review.
That would be his power. If he had received it straight from the parliament, he could either say, okay, I agree, he could veto, or he could send to Constitutional Court. That part has been done by someone else. So now he's waiting to see. And then if it's all good, then he still has the ability to either veto for political reasons or to approve the law, which then follows for to be published in the official gazette and then obviously be put in force. If there are unconstitutionalities, then depending on the size or the complexity of them, they will need to be rediscussed and reapproved in the parliament.
So 1 month, let's say, if there is unconstitutional, which there are some comments about it and the general sentiment is kind of like that, it will go back to the parliament. Then it's the Christmas time a bit coming.
Of course, this is not binding because all of
Nothing
this
is
process,
binding, huh?
all of this process. No, I'm not afraid of that. But all of this process has been a little bit atypical, and so it's difficult to be committing to expected timelines or timeframes. But I would not. I would be very surprised to see anything come into force, whatever shape it be, before the end of the year. But obviously, the process itself will take much longer if there are indeed inconstitutionalities found.
It could lead to January, February.
It might easily slip. Yes.
Why I think this is kind of important as well, because I know you are busy, very busy for several reasons, and I know that the ones who completed their 5 years time from the application date with the A2 level certificate, they are trying to apply, and this is what we are communicating to our existing investors, because they were afraid if it ends in November, some people were missing their opportunity without knowing what the outcome will be. So I'm speaking to the investors who has invested in 2020 or prior to be able to make everything ready, try to speak Portuguese, A2 level certificate, for being able to apply for the citizenship before any law changes is in place. I think this was very important.
That would be if all the applications for passport that are submitted before the law changes, in whichever format it comes to be, are obviously bound by the existing rules, which is date of application date being the kickstart and 5 years for it. So anyone who submits under these terms is obviously grandfathered by what exists. the difficulty here is to try to estimate the timeline that we have. So obviously for anyone who's still interested in applying for citizenship and has already met all the requirements, it's just getting the documents and trying to submit as soon as possible. This is obviously the best advice that we can give to the investors right now. For the ones that to this date do not yet meet the requirements, then of course we cannot, some things we cannot speed it up. Of course, we cannot fast track for the 5 years. So for those, we have to wait. I know this is the worst thing that we can say to a client, is that we have to wait, but we do have to wait and see what comes out of this law. When is it applicable? Who is it applicable to? Because there's still room for a little bit of change.
Exactly, but I think if someone will be eligible to apply in January, February, even March, I think it's the time to get the certificate, to get ready. If it is, it's taking longer, to use the opportunity of window for the application. Important part, what are the unconstitutional parts of the law in your perspective that can be raised from the Constitutional Court?
Several, and we will spend the whole afternoon here discussing this piece of law.
For the ones that is interesting for our investors.
Exactly. For me, the critical part is the lack of a transition period.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning this law will apply as it's drafted, will apply to all new citizenship applications.
Yes.
Period. Meaning whoever does not have a citizenship application in place by the day this law becomes enacted,
which we were speaking,
it's not protected, right? So for me, that's the key part, and that's actually a part that PS raised in their request to the court.
Yes, I remember.
The government was smart enough to split the amendment in two, so putting another very, very, at least questionable part of the law. It's not relevant for these discussions, and the government knows that is obviously unconstitutional, so they split it and put it in another piece of legislation, so Annex B if you want. But this part that we are discussing, the lack of transition period, has to stay in the main law. So that for me is the key part. Is the lack of a transition period, a lack of grandfathering residents or applicants to residency at this current stage.
Do you have any addition to that? What about the counting time?
The counting of time also, it more or less comes to be included in what Manuel said. I understood that it's implicit, but obviously the fact that you spent the last few years knowing that your kickstart date was the application date because of the delays.
Recently changed.
And it was changed because the government acknowledged the delays that they were having in processing the applications, which could not be attributed to the investor. So it was not their fault that they're taking 2, 3, 4, 5 years to issue the first card. And so, let's not penalize you for this, and let's provided obviously it comes to be approved and that we can see that you met the requirements. That's a very important stage. It retroacts to the date that you have submitted your application. So now this, almost when we're getting to the 5 years, having been pushed back and all of this waiting period, counting for nothing, if we call it like that, for reasons again that are still not the applicant's fault, is
problematic.
Is one of the problems, yes. And I think that solving this alone would give the investors, at least a sense of justice and a sense of, because that's what's the general feeling, is that it's not their fault. It was never promised to them that this would take this long, and now still the waiting period didn't count for anything. So that's the most difficult part of this process.
Okay, a question that very open to your comment and your perception. If we consider that there are some unconstitutional parts which you both stated, how is the legal and political atmosphere considering this will go back to the parliament with these possible unconstitutional parts of the law? So there will be some coalitions and everything, but how do you see, of course, it's not binding or anything, but I want to understand how do you feel the market in that term?
That's
Very difficult question.
It's very difficult. You know, we're at this stage where there's a conversion of things happening all at the same time. We're having presidential elections very soon. The parties are, you know, a bit divided even between the selections for the president. Everything is happening at the same time, and it was just the approval of the budget that's also raising, you know, questions and conflicts and negotiations between parties. So a lot of it is political and still obviously backstage, and we're not familiar with everything. I don't think that, and Manuel can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I have ever in this last few days heard anyone voicing expressly their opinion on this or their. I think that everyone's just waiting to be a little bit cautious to see how the Constitutional Court turns out, to then see what is it to say.
Where they will play.
Where they will play. This is all politics at the end of the day.
Exactly, that's why.
I would break my answer in two parts. One, I would say the legal community, right? So people that have legal education. And I think it's almost consensual that we are facing an unconstitutional law, or at least challengeable. Right? So on that part, on the technical part, I think we are more or less all aligned, and people from all political sides. Right? Then, politically, this is a political law, right? This has nothing to do with justice, fairness, the grounds of a legal system. It has to be with a political option, period. Since we spoke, things in Portugal, politically speaking, kind of got a little bit more clear. So not just in this law. We were just coming from a very recent general elections where it looked like we transitioned perhaps more than we are used to a more right-wing side of political views. In the meantime, we had municipal elections, so it's the largest election in Portugal. Right, we elect mayors and city halls for all the cities we have in Portugal, and it's a small country, but with a lot of city halls, a lot of city halls.
We know them.
And parishes, yeah. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. And surprise, surprise, the typical guys are still the typical guys. Right. So at the end of the day, we didn't change that much. In the fabrics of the country, we still more or less stand in the same way, meaning PS and PSD, the two parties that have been government since we overthrown the dictator. They are still the two largest political parties in the country, toe to toe. Sometimes one wins more, sometimes the other one. But at the end of the day, it kind of relaxed us. Okay, we are still moderate, because both parties, they are moderate at the end of the day. Right? They built democracy in Portugal. They are actually the two founders of democracy in Portugal. So that kind of cooled things a little bit down. It allowed the state budget to be approved unheard of, almost with no discussion. And if you remember the past year,
no, there was always a debate.
There was a debate.
Give me this, I give you that.
It almost forced general elections because of it, and then it was forced for another reason. But it was intense.
Yes,
the debate.
Discussion.
This time was very relaxed, almost unheard. It was almost not on the news, right? Quite easy. So my view in all of this is that the reasons that generated this law, because it started before this clarification, are no longer there. I still believe, and every time I have the chance, I put it out there with everybody I know in those spaces, that it's too far stretched to PSD to pose themselves that far into the right-wing space. PS was the adult in the room and came with a moderate amendment to the law. They are still completely against it, but they said, okay.
If we are going to do it, we should do it this way.
At the end of the day, you are government, right? You won the general elections. You are entitled to propose changes. I don't like those. I just amended the law 1 year ago.
Yes.
Right, but okay, let's amend it again. But you want to amend it, we'll do amendments. But let's do it in an adult manner. Right. And that amendment was to the good and the bad. You may agree or disagree with the political option, but it was something that everybody that has a moderate view could accept. In the sense, okay. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say with all of this, it's probably part of it is wishful thinking.
We need that too.
Sometimes it works. It looks to me that the political community is calming down from the afraid, scares and doubts that were raised after the general elections. Let's hope that that represents a more moderate way to run this country, because at the end of the day we need it.
Okay, thank you for both of the answers. So until the law becomes the final, what is the recommended course of actions for the golden visa investors? I think we have touched base for the ones who has invested in 2020 or beginning of 21 to get ready for any longer decision-making process to be able to apply with the current law. And for the others, what would be, of course, I know what you will say, to wait, but they also want to understand what legal grounds that they can have if they want to open a lawsuit or something, which I know I asked prior, but I would really like to hear that again.
My view is not simply wait, is remain aware. The law is
active listening.
Active listening and getting ready, right?
Yes.
Obviously, as you mentioned, the ones that are already eligible for citizenship or almost there, well, let's take your case as an eligible case and let's get ready and file as soon as we can citizenship applications, right? And the ones that we can't still, let's be ready to file at day one, right? As soon as you hit the 5-year mark, let's file your applications. For all the others, remain vigilant, right? Remain vigilant. Don't disregard your golden visa, right? You invested a lot of money and dedication to this process. Sometimes it's a large part of a life plan. So don't defocus on that. Allow us to still be on top of it. Believe me, the legal community has been very intense in raising awareness with the political deciders. Probably this time is a little bit less busy or noisy, right? You don't see much as before in terms of in the news, in social media. But believe me, the legal community has been putting sufficient pressure. And I'm not discussing or talking about anything that is illegal or under the table. Things are being done officially.
Explaining the consequences and everything.
Addressing properly in writing, sustainable opinions to political key deciders. So that is in March. That's in place. Of course, if the worst case scenario comes up, and we are all listening to what the Constitutional Court will say, and I believe all our firms are doing as we are, preparing for the worst case scenario, which is court cases in a mass scale.
On individual basis, right?
In that case, worst case will be individual, but it will be a mass number of cases.
Of course.
They will have to be individual applications, of course, because of the nature of itself. But obviously, the number all combined will almost look like a class action itself, but just by the number of independents. However, it's also important to say that legal action is always a resource that the applicants have at any time, at the process, at any time, any point in time, even on the resident side, on the citizenship side. But of course, it's like any other judicial case, it has its formalities. It can take a long time, and obviously it's the worst case scenario for everyone. Hopefully this will be resolved in a matter that doesn't have to lead to that, because we all know that that can also lead to a lot of frustration and delays, which is what we don't want on top of everything else.
Who they are going to be suing, basically?
That's a good question. It depends on what we're asking for. It depends on if we're trying to retroact to the date of application, if we're trying to go for expectations that the applicants had.
Yes.
I think a lot has to be tailor-made to the specific details of the clients and their applications and their timings. And so it's impossible. There's no one-size-fits-all kind of action, because all of them have different reasons, different timings, different needs, different reasons why this should be granted to them. So it is really an individual case.
At the end of the day, you have an application with the new law applying, justifying a rejection to your application, right? You apply for the citizenship and getting rejected, your golden visa. In this case, golden visas are relatively protected. It's not the main issue. So you will have an administrative process being rejected. That's the decision that you can fight up to constitutional courts. So even if the public entity that decides your case says, I'm backed by the laws, I'm taking a legal decision, it's supported by law, you can still fight that law at the constitutional level, obviously, to your specific case. Right? So if you get a decision, it affects you only.
And I remember, and I'm always telling to investors or current interested potential investors that they can always apply for permanent residency after 5 years. But when I say the 5 years, it's really important where these 5 years start. Because for citizenship application, we know we are discussing, but for PR, it starts from the card issuance or application date?
Card issue.
Card issuance.
But they are not to be kicked out of their current residency until they reach that stage, okay? So obviously this will have some impact on the investments, for example, depending on, you know, some closed-end funds that will... But it is also possible to invest in a different fund for a little bit if they have to. As long as the option still exists in the law, it is possible to change the investment to another fund that you need 1 or 2 more years if that comes to be the case. Bottom line is, this is not changing golden visa. The rules are still the same. It's still the same minimum time requirements. It's still the same rules for family reunification, and you are not being kicked out of the program sooner. If you need to spend 5 years since the issue of the card until you are able to apply for permanent residence, this is still an option under the golden visa. And then obviously applicants can apply for the permanent residency, worst case scenario, if they do really need the 10 years from date of issue. Okay?
Yes. I think this was especially important for our investors that are invested in the closed-end funds, that the durations can be a problem. My only concern there is there are a lot of 350,000 euro investors in the funds because the law required that much and the funds were invested in real estate. So on these terms, I think it will be another content to see also with our fund managers what we can provide to them. We will make the base for them to be able to fulfill their required timeline to apply for permanent residency.
I think I understand, and all of these doubts and questions are legitimate and everyone is concerned about this, but this is a good program. It still works on the long run. This is what I like to tell the investors. You know, once you're there at the end, when you're, you know, when you've reached, you will forget about all of these frustrations and delays and etc. And all of these doubts are understandable. But I think at a certain point, especially in this case where we need to wait and to see what happens, is that all the parties involved in this are invested in finding solutions and in helping the applicants with their course of action. So no one can push anything. And I know for some cultures and for some investors, it's difficult to understand why we can't pressure more or lobby more, because the institutions are different and rules in certain countries are different. I think that the legal community, the lawyers, the fund managers, everyone who is involved in this is very active and is doing what is possible at the time to obviously protect everyone's interest. This is what ultimately what we want, especially the lawyers, of course, that represent the applicants. And we are very vigilant and we are very attentive, but there's a certain limit to what we can do.
Yes.
And so this is important. We are aware, we are obviously making possible scenarios and possible solutions predictions, but at this point we really have to wait and see what comes out of this process before we are able to sit down with everyone and say, okay, this is my proposed course of action for your specific family.
Of course. Having said this, my last question is, after this actually approval in the parliament, all of a sudden you started getting appointments, IMA appointments for the investors, especially who has invested 2022 and further, who didn't open a lawsuit. So you are receiving, I think, hundreds, thousands of appointments, which is the good part, good news about what is happening. And I'm CC in these emails, and I want to give a message. First of all, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you are given a date, just be here. It's not possible to change. It's not any in lawyer's hand to request for another day or something. It's really important, and I know it's difficult, it's not fair, but you have a date that you've been waiting for years, and really try to be on that day.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Secondly, everyone is so happy but also disappointed because the only appointments are coming for main applicants, and most of the investors are doing it for the family, especially for the kids, which they don't have any visibility. And I see also you receive a lot of emails stating that they request the family members to have the same appointment date so they can travel together to go, which is normal. But I know you would prefer that too, because it's 3 or 4 times of the same job for you as well. But is it possible to request it?
There's no point in requesting this now. IMA, which is aware of this situation, they understand. According to what was explained to us, this was the only way in terms of technology to kickstart the process. And what they're trying to do is to fix all the glitches and to find the system to put the family members in the same time frame, even if it's not the same day, in the same location as the main applicant.
They are trying?
They are trying.
They are aware of it.
They are aware of it. They are aware, and they are actively trying to do this. And so at this point, we were asked not to send hundreds of emails to request. This is what they are trying to do. And I think that, to be fair, we are giving them a little bit of space to see if they can, of course, accommodate this. As far as I know, obviously, you know that the communication is always very difficult because there's no official source of information on this. We get this by speaking to, the officials and delegations, piece of information here and there. So when we try to gather everything, we know that they acknowledge this. They are trying to fix it to match or to combine as much as possible the dates. But we were also asked by the Immigration Office to not fail to attend the appointments for this reason. It's really important. They wish they had a better system that they could, reschedule. But at this point, the number of applications that they need to clear is so massive that it is impossible to be coordinating cancellations and etc. So they are actively working on this. We're trying to give them a little bit of time and space to be able to put the system to work. They acknowledge this and they are doing what they can to include the family members. But yes, and I agree with you. Please, I know it sometimes may be difficult, but it is very important that you attend the appointments at the given time and date.
I would say the same thing, just remembering that before we had, as Anna-Rita was saying, today is a technological platform that is managing the allocation of appointments. Before was handmade, right? There was an inspector
you were given a few time slots, locations, and you were asking to the investors, they were choosing.
And or CEF back then was aware and was always trying to bundle families, right, in the same location, more or less the same time, same day. So that was a worry of IMA or CEF before. Today is the same thing, but IMA has been through a technological revolution since the beginning of this year, implementing new tools.
AI?
Including AI, yes.
There is AI there. There is AI. There's actually a very creative piece of technology on international database checking. It's probably, if it is as they say, or if it works as they say, is a game changer in terms of approvals post biometrics. We are still to see.
Inshallah.
We are still to see. But it's a very nice piece of technology. Actually, Portuguese developed for the banking system, so it's already tested on the bank level. Let's see now at government graded. Let's see how it goes. But this said, my point is, before the technology came in place, the human beings that were behind the appointments were sensitive to putting families together, right? That's still there, right? It's just a machine now that is processing most of the thing, but the people, they still have it's the same people still, right?
Okay.
It's still same mentality.
So we will get there, hopefully.
Yes.
We don't know the time when they will be, so no need to ask this to the lawyers neither.
No, they can ask. I'm not. It's just that they cannot be surprised by the answer.
how many meetings you are scheduling, and I see that lawyers are underwater in the sense that the ones who wants to apply for citizenship now, it puts a lot of pressure, of course. If I'm ready, I want to do it today, and I would even come to sit at the office to make sure. And the other ones are, of course, you are receiving a lot of information that you need to inform people, and sometimes there is one day or something, and people are stressed if they don't receive it. That's why I'm saying, even though I know the complaints can come and everything, but there is also a lot of things happening, and I'm just trying to avoid unnecessary ones, at least. And I don't know if you have any investors from 21 still that didn't get their appointment or something, but you are still receiving them, right? It is very early to alarm anything.
This came almost 1 year after the meeting we had with IMA, where they presented this new system, and that was going to be, and the resubmissions, if you remember, this came late, almost 1 year late, but they finally managed to put this in. So it's very early now. It's 1 or 2 weeks that they're. So we're
Did you start going this meet every day? You are going to applications, I guess, nowadays, or it started from January?
It's mixed with the renewals that also started working. So it was all at the same time.
What I can tell you is that I'm sure the same thing with you. We are extremely busy with appointments. Extremely.
Yes.
Crazy numbers. Notifications and going to actual appointments. Extremely.
Okay.
And IMA is using the lawyers, as they said they would, which is fine. They're using the lawyers to clear the system and to release. So they're sending appointments. I'm sure this happened to all the law firms. Sure. They're sending appointments to everyone in the system, even that have their biometrics, that have their cards, that gave up, that they're. This was the only way that they told the system, in order to make sure that we reach everyone. What we're doing is sending out appointments for everyone in the list. And now I wait for you to tell me, this one has a card, this one is waiting for the card, this one already did their biometrics, this person is no longer interested on the golden visa. So they're clearing the system using the information that we lawyers have to feed them. So this is becoming a relationship as it should. And so at the same time, we're giving them a little bit of space and time to correct the system and to use those to combine the families. So my message is they acknowledge that the families are important. They are not trying to do the investors first and then go back to the families. I hope it's possible to do everyone at the same time. But there's nothing really that we can do at this moment to speed it up. And if it comes to the point where the first applicants to receive their notification still don't have the appointments for the family, my advice is still the same. Please try your best to come in, because it's not possible that the family will be left behind.
Yes.
Right? So eventually everyone will have an appointment.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time. I passed the time a little bit. Thank you for coming here and explaining everything. So we will have this video content to be sent all our investors. If you let me, I can also post on LinkedIn. And this is the latest situation. So in a short time, when everything is clear, maybe we do another one. If it's a good news with the drinks, let's see.
I hope so.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for listening to us.